Welcome back to Together We Can's monthly action items. My name is Rob Crane. I'm a personal injury attorney in Dallas, Texas. And along with my friend Pastor Richie Butler, we are co-founders of Together We Can. This month, we are going to challenge ourselves. This is not a month for the faint of heart. And you can look at our mission statement and appreciate that we are doing a number of things with Together We Can, bringing historical lessons that we may not have learned at school, learning a lot more about our nation and the world in context of differences and in particular race, but also trying to give each other tools that help us in our mindfulness and how we approach others, regardless of differences. And as we note in the materials this month, this is a lifelong practice. This is us trying to understand our own emotions, where they come from, how we physically react to those, what we do with those initial responses that come to mind when our emotions get triggered, and come to that emotional maturity where we understand that the first thoughts that come to our head are generated by our processor, and they are not thoughts that label us in who we are or what values we have. Our brains are going to generate those initial thoughts because of our past, our parents, our influences, our experiences in life, what we have been taught through all kinds of inputs. And so it's what we do with those initial thoughts, what we do with those initial emotional reactions is a big part of life. And it's a practice that we never complete. We will all be working on this until our time on this planet is done. And so in the context of differences and race, it takes that very difficult concept and process even to another level of in such a sensitive area, and understanding not only how our emotional reactions can be dealt with in a positive way, but also appreciating others' emotional reactions when it comes to race. And goodness gracious, let's all be upfront. We have political discourse in this country right now. We have anonymous social media postings every fraction of a second that are divisive. And on the issue of race, that is predominant right now. And it's just something that is going to be part of our journey. We've talked about it before. We talked about it in our last session about how oftentimes we take several steps forward and then sometimes we have steps back. And that goes back to our history post-Civil War, Juneteenth, and the reading of the Declaration in Galveston, Texas, and that moment of forward progress and the 13th Amendment then following. But then we had the backlash, and Reconstruction did not go as hoped. There was the rise of Jim Crow laws, the further rise of the Klan in our country. And we see those kinds of backlashes following major steps forward. And it seems like following the death of George Floyd, there was so much in the way of positive discussion, positive efforts, especially on the part of so many corporations around the globe, of saying, you know what, we need to bring this in to our walls, virtual walls, physical walls, and have these discussions about who we are and make our company stronger. And in response to that movement and those steps of progress following his death in early 2020, we're now seeing some backlash. We're obviously seeing that in a lot of the political discourse. So in the summer of 2020, Brené Brown, Dr. Brené Brown, did a solo podcast that we're going to listen to this month. And I've listened to it several times. And most of y'all won't need to listen to it as many times as I have, but I would encourage you that you probably will need to listen to it a couple of times. Brené Brown is one of our foremost researchers. She calls herself a researcher, storyteller. If you've not come across her, do. She had a TED Talk actually in 2010, which kind of just introduced her to the world. And she's written 6 #1 New York Times bestselling books. They are amazing. Listening to her is entertaining. She's got salty language, so salty language alert, but great storytelling. And she is going to walk us through the concept of shame. And I call it a concept because we all have a understanding in our minds of what shame is. And for most of us, that's not a word we like to talk about. It's one we avoid, especially if we're going to label it to ourselves. And she is a shame researcher. I didn't know such things existed, quite frankly, until I was introduced to Dr. Brown. And she's going to teach us how shame is part of all of us. It is a natural condition. It is a natural emotion that we all have. And she's going to define it for us so we really understand exactly what is shame. Because shame and guilt are two different things, and we might not necessarily understand the difference. And she helps us understand that and how it works, what the antidote to shame is, as you'll learn. And then she brings it into the context of discussions about race and the emotional reactions that we all have in context of race and differences and so forth, and how we can best go about improving ourselves in this realm, understanding that we are not going to get it right. And we have harped on that frequently and Together We Can, that we're just not going to get it right in our first thoughts, as well as, we're going to make mistakes. And Dr. Brown talks a story about how she was trying to be positive and give someone a compliment and saying, this person is my spirit animal. And Dr. Brown's got 10 million plus followers all over social media platforms. And she got immediate negative feedback about using that phrase and it not being necessarily sensitive to Native Americans. And she goes through that and what her emotional reactions were and how her reaction was one of, well, wait a minute, we're just being too sensitive. And she took the time to process her emotions, and she'll talk to you about, how she got it right. And you will hear her say several times, and I think it's something we can all use as a mantra. I am here to get it right. I am not here to be right. She also talks about a first thought process when she got an airplane, and one after another, the co-pilot and pilot came out, and both were women. And at first she saw the first co-pilot come out and thought, oh, this is great. And then she saw the second co-pilot come out and she thought, oh my gosh, the plane's going to crash. And she talks through that story and how she caught herself and thought, through her immediate reactions. And she went back and told her class of women about this and how it is a lesson for us all. And I think we can all go back and think to those kinds of thoughts we have. We can all go back to times where we may have said something inadvertently that, we were trying to do good things, trying to have positive discourse, and did something that inadvertently hurt someone's feelings or wasn't as sensitive as we would want to be. And that's life. And having grace by those friends around us is helpful. Us being able to appreciate and understand how we can best handle those allows us to be the best we can in these discourses in regards to race and differences. She also touches on accountability, the importance of that, and how that is not necessarily shaming others. And she gives us tools going forward that are not only here for us in the context of race and differences, but for all of us as we just try to be as good as we can be. Good friends, good spouses, good parents, good coworkers, good community leaders, good community supporters. So I hope that you get as much out of Dr. Brown's podcast this month, and encourage you to seek out her other materials as well. Not an easy month, but one that I really I really hold up to you that I think can be a game changer for you. Hope to see you back next month.